Hello, everyone. Thank you again for attending this evening's webinar. We're very happy that you're able to join us and for what we hope you'll find to be as an informative and interesting presentation on how to become a paralegal. My name is Joshua Snow. I'm the admissions counselor for the online paralegal certificate program. I may have talked to some of you already one-on-one, and if not, maybe hopefully we'll do soon. I am happy to introduce our guest this evening. His name is Mr. Joseph Spada. He is the director of the Paralegal Studies Program here at Boston University. So he does oversee the program, but he also teaches several components within the program. He also has 20 years of experience as a federal attorney, and he's a member of the Massachusetts Bar, as well as the U.S. District Court, the District of Massachusetts, and the First Circuit Court of Appeals. So before we actually get started, I just want to note a couple things. This session is being recorded, so we will provide you with a link to the recording once it's over to all the attendees in the session. And also we have a chat feature available for you. We'd like you to utilize that chat for submitting questions. So as we're going through the presentation, if anything pops into your head, if you have questions about things, don't hesitate to go into the chat box and let us know. And we welcome any comments that you have also. So as moderator, I'm going to be monitoring your questions and comments, and then we'll either raise them for our presentation during the session, or if you want to hold it, we'll have some time at the end of the presentation where we'll go over some additional questions, and hopefully you can get everything, any questions that you have, you can get them answered during this session. So I want to again thank you one more time for attending the webinar on becoming a paralegal, and then with that, I will go ahead and turn the presentation to our presenter, Mr. Spada.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Like Josh said, we're here for you tonight, and we're here to get your questions answered. We have a presentation available that we're going to do, but I want to be clear. If you have questions and you can't stay the whole time, put them in the chat bar, and Josh will get them to me, and we'll get them answered, because that's what that's our primary goal tonight, is to answer your questions. So let's talk about what a paralegal is. A paralegal is a person qualified by either education or training, workplace experience, who is employed by a lawyer or a law office, a corporation, or other governmental agency to perform substantive legal work in the industry. All right. So if you look at this graph here, you've got the attorneys, you've got different levels of attorneys, the contract lawyer, the associate, the partner. On the right-hand side, you have the support staff, receptionists, marketing staff, administrators. In the middle are your legal assistants, and at the top of that are paralegals. And that's obviously what we're talking about today. What sets paralegals apart from the other legal assistants in that group and from the support staff, and kind of puts them more in the realm of the attorneys? Paralegals bill for their time. So many of you probably know what that means, but if you don't, just very quickly. If a paralegal works an hour, that paralegal for a client, that paralegal will bill that client probably roughly $75, $85 an hour. Doesn't mean you get that, but that's what the firm who you're working for will bill the client directly. What that means is paralegals really are revenue producers in the firm. They create billable hours, all right, as opposed to legal admin, a legal secretary who gets a salary, just draws from the profits of the firm. Paralegals actually increase the profits of the firm because they're generating money through their billable hours. It's making paralegals extremely attractive in the field right now. And what's happened in the last 5 or 6 years, I mean, paralegals have been around forever, but the economy going through sort of the turmoil that's been going on through, clients are less willing to pay second, third, fourth year attorneys billing at $250, $350 or up an hour to do work that really a paralegal, a trained, qualified paralegal can do at a much lesser rate. So that they're asking for paralegals to do the initial work product because, again, they can produce it for the client, supervised by the attorney on a much cheaper scale. So paralegal as a field is really burgeoning with all of this and the sort of new use of paralegals. what do paralegals do? That's like asking what a doctor does. It's like there's so many different variations. Some specialize eyes, ears, nose, and throat. Some are, just do blood work. Some are general internists. It's the same with paralegal. You could have a generalist paralegal who works in a small firm, has a lot of responsibilities in different substantive areas. Or also have a paralegal that really just specializes in one or two areas and gets develops an area of expertise for themselves. But in general, always, paralegals are integrated into every aspect of business, small business, medium-sized business, corporations, partnerships. They are substantively working in public service, all areas of the government, local, state, federal, medical. Wherever there is a contract or a service, there's the opportunity for a paralegal to do work. Look at this graph. In litigation, paralegals can draft. There's just so much. It's hard to sort of focus in, but just to give you a taste, when you talk about litigation, every piece of litigation starts with a complaint. Well, paralegals often draft that complaint. That's the lawsuit. It lays out the facts and the law, and one of the jobs of the paralegal is to research all the surrounding facts of a given pattern, a fact pattern that your client, the paralegal, takes the intake information that the client is communicating to them, gets them, put them in generally a chronological time frame, present to the supervising attorney, and then the paralegal sort of researches the law that is most likely to be affected by the fact patterns. Paralegals put this together. Supervising attorneys work with them. They might say, I don't think that's going to be a claim here. I heard of another claim over here. So there's a lot of give and take back and forth between paralegals and attorneys. Probate estate planning, basically paralegals are walking heirs through the probate process. If you've ever to execute a will, lots of times no one really, first time around, no one was to do that. It's expensive to have the attorney walk you through that when a paralegal can do that at a lesser rate and bill you at a lesser rate. Legal research, we'll talk about that a little later on, but they're constantly conducting legal research on vast legal databases, LexisNexis or Classic or Westlaw Next. Those are online databases. They also do manual searches in basic libraries. You have to be able to write as a paralegal. Basically, any kind of correspondence between the client and the attorney is going through the paralegal. You're also summing up information that you've been working on for your supervising attorney. Real estate, everything, every aspect of real estate, both commercial and residential. You're going to draft the offers to purchase the actual real estate, the purchase and sales agreements, title searches, title abstracts, rental agreements. You're doing it all. So paralegals are very, very active in the field. So is being a paralegal a fantastic career choice?
Hi, Joe. Joe, sorry to intervene here. We actually had a question when you were talking about the billable hours. The question was, when you are talking about billable hours, does a paralegal, receive a portion of that billable hour, or does that all go to the firm that they work for?
Oh, it varies, but for the most part, paralegal does not get a specific portion of that billable hour. Let's just say $90 is your billable. Generally, it's kind of like the paralegal you consider be making sort of $30,000 of that. $30,000 goes for the attorneys because it's their business, and $30,000 goes for administrative costs. So it's kind of broken down into thirds. The same's basically true for the attorneys, just at higher rate. So we state it a little clearer. You're generally going to be salaried as a paralegal. Sometimes, depending on your firm, you can get OT if you're going over 40 hours. You would bill that out, whatever your billable fee is, $75, $100, generally in that range, and would produce that revenue for the firm. It's not It's a gross revenue. Firm's got to pay its staff, its electrical bill, its rent, its whatever else it has to do, and then it will pay you a portion of it, but in via your salary.
you.
Okay. So paralegals work in many industries. One of the huge pluses in being a paralegal right now in this market is you cannot be outsourced, all right? This is happening all over the place. It's happening in banking. It's happening in software. Paralegals are dealing with U.S. law, so even though they're touching various areas, the actual work of the paralegal is not outsourced. That's huge because that means that the jobs are going to stay here, they're going to stay for you, and the employment market is going to remain robust for the paralegal field. And this legal work that you'll be doing can be in a myriad of different subject matters of industry, from health, financial, insurance, hospitality, retail, everything, entertainment. Most of the paralegal work is going to be employed by a law firm. I suppose certainly not all, but and when law firms, there's sort of subcategories as well, as in terms of a solo practitioner, a small legal practice, a medium-sized firm, and some of these large firms have over 500 lawyers and 500 paralegals. So when we say law firms, there's a wide array of what type of firms. But paralegals can also work in corporate offices. So any sort of corporation can have in-house counsel like Genzyme or whatever the corporation might be. They generally going to have a legal office, and the paralegals could work for that corporation. I will say maybe a little more detail than you need right now, but generally if you're working in a corporate office, you're not doing billables because the client is the corporation to whom you work for, so it's a little bit different there. Pays about the same. If anything, corporate employees tend to go more. They're a little harder jobs to get. They require a little more expertise, just again, generally speaking. Paralegals also work in government, service, municipal level, state level, federal level. So there really are a lot of paralegal jobs out there and different opportunities.
Hey, Joe.
So let's talk. Yes.
Yeah, I had another question regarding the jobs.
I was going to talk about money, Josh.
Well, they had asked how somebody perhaps that gets this certificate can compete with college graduates that are also job searching.
Say that one more time.
How can I compete with college graduates that are also job searching?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I will answer it now, but there'll be a slide that talks about it a little later. About 24% of paralegals have an undergraduate degree of some sort, a BA or a associate's degree. That leaves about, I don't have the chart in front of you, so, roughly 25% do not. The percent who do not have a paralegal, do not have an undergraduate degree, who have earned a certificate of some sort, are competing against college grads. So they're there. You have to know that who your competition is, so maybe you have to start a little more entry level in the field. Maybe you don't start in the exact area you want to go to because the competition will be harder for you. Absolutely. Generally, I talk about two exceptions where that might work if you don't have your undergraduate degree. Those exceptions would be if you have some sort of legal experience, some sort of legal job on your resume. You were a receptionist in a law firm, or you were a legal secretary, something along those lines, where you have some familiarity with the area of practice within the law. If you have that and you get your certificate, that's a good path into the field, or even if you don't have your undergraduate. Some of this is geographically located, too. The other way is your own sort of network. If I hate to say it this way, but just to be clear, if you got a family member who's an attorney or a paralegal or a judge or some position in the legal community, or a best friend, that would help sway you into getting, competing against the people with the college degrees. Why? Because really the first job is going to be hardest. Once you get your first job, it's really not going to matter undergrad, where you are in that scheme of things. It's the experience of your first job, and it's getting that first job. So if you have some contacts in the field, you can call upon to either do an internship or to give you your first job to help build up that skill set necessary to compete in the market against other people, that would be an exception too. But those, in my mind, would be the two best exceptions for going into this without an undergrad, because you will be competing, and most people, roughly 75%, will have both their certificate and an undergraduate degree.
Great, thank you very much.
See, if I was in the classroom, people would be nodding their head, and I would know to go on. Okay. So let's talk salaries a little bit. Again, it's going to go vary by geography. I've got a wide audience here. We're national. We're running this nationally. Frankly, we've done international in our classes before with some soldiers in Iraq. It's hard to talk about what the salary is. I came up with this chart just to give you an indication that geography does matter. Where you are, the salaries are going to vary a little bit. And these are mean average paralegal salaries by state. I will say, and if we flip the page, what matters more in paralegal salaries is experience. So entry-level paralegals are pretty much starting off generally at about $54,000, $55,000. That's your entry level. You know, the medium, some 41, some 68. If you're in more of a rural, suburban market, you might be starting lower. You know, some people, depending on the market, start at 20 or start as an internship for 3 months just to sort of get that work experience. But 54 is basically the average mean throughout the country. Look, after 10 years, you're going up to possibly 86,000. 5 to 10 years, you're between 55 and 112. I mean, they're really, there's no limit, but 6 figures is definitely possible within 10 to 15 years of experience. It's a field that definitely grows, so you have lots of opportunity to advance your career. All right, so entry possible for people from all various backgrounds. We talked about this recently. College graduates are a lot of paralegals. They're becoming, a lot of liberal arts graduates are looking for a more specific employable skill set. If you're English, if you were sociology or history, great majors. I'm a liberal arts guy. That's what I did. Sometimes it requires a more honed skill set. This is a wonderful opportunity to do that. We also have mid-career professional changes. It's not unusual. I've had a few event planners who wanted to do something different. I've had more than a few teachers who are just like, enjoyed the first couple of years of teaching but wanted to do something different. And just generally people who want to work and get involved in the law. Okay, so the good thing about paralegal field, in addition to not being outsourced, this is projected to grow by 8%, and this is the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics, 8% all the way through 2024. So it's definitely a field that is maintaining its market share and actually increasing it. Path to becoming a paralegal, this is pretty much what I was doing before with the question. If you look, 44% of paralegals have their bachelor's degree, 30% have their associate's degree. That's what I was getting, the 75 roughly. My math isn't perfect, but it's close. 40% have no degree and are working paralegals. It can be done. One of the things with paralegals is there is no federal or even state certificate granting agencies. Attorneys have to pass the bar, and each state has its own bar, and the Board of Bar Overseers, not to be confused with the American Bar Association, the Board of Bar Overseers in each state grants the attorney the license. There's no such similarity for paralegals. There is no certificate test to be taken at the state level. Your certificate is being generated by the school itself and the internal certificate guidelines of the school. So it's really important in terms of what school you're going to go to. So let's talk about starting your program research, what you should consider. Okay. Basically, you always want to look at history and the reputation of any school that is going to be granting paralegal certificates, and make sure that not a certificate factory. Boston University has had some paralegal certificate programs since 1975. We are one of the oldest in the country in terms of how long we were doing this. BU really was at the forefront of helping develop the paralegal field. Have reasonable amount of completions. We have granted over 6,000 certificates, and of those, 3,600 were online. And given that this is the online course we're primarily talking about tonight, I want that to be, clear and that you understand that. We've been doing it. We went online in 2006. So when I say we started the program in 1975, well, we clearly didn't start it online in 75. We went online in 2006, all right? And this completion rate is our online completion rate. 93% of students complete, and we say complete, pass, earn their certificate, right? So what's happening with that other 7%? You should know. First of all, 93% in terms of certificate granting colleges is a very high number, so we're very proud of that. But it's not a giveaway. We're not a certificate mill. We're not just giving these certificates away. You have to earn it because we have to keep up our standards so that BU reputation remains intact and stellar. I can tell you that there's a very small percentage, 5 to 7% of students who basically through attrition just stop showing up, and if you have to have the commitment to follow through to the program. It's 14 weeks. It's not an exorbitant amount of time, but you stop showing up if you start missing assignments, and if you start missing finals and quizzes, then you're not going to pass. You're not going to earn your certificate. I will say, we work with students. Our intention is to support students, so we are there for you. If you need a reasonable extension, we're going to listen to you. Odds are, if it's not a pattern, we're going to certainly support you in that. We want you to succeed. We're to help you succeed. At some point, there's a certain amount that does depend on you. You got to show up. So I'm only talking to 7%. 93% of you do show up, and we're happy with that figure. So what's the reputation of Boston University? U.S. News and World Report has put us in the top-ranked 50 schools in the country, 50 colleges, 50 universities. So that's a huge plus for us, and it's a huge plus for anyone who's taking our program and is going to have Boston University on their certificate. It's nationally recognized. It's actually internationally recognized, so we're really pleased with that. One are the credentials of the teachers. Our program instructors are all experienced attorneys. I'll show you in a minute that the program is really divided into 7 modules or 7 subject matters. Each attorney who teaches each respective module is working in the field in the area. So our probate instructor is an attorney working in probate. Our, real estate instructor is an attorney working, and specialty is real estate. In addition to the attorney instructors, each module will have a teaching assistant assigned to the class, and that teaching assistant is a working paralegal in that field. So, that's fantastic. You're getting, in each of the modules, you're getting an instructor who works in the field who's an attorney, and you're getting a teaching assistant in each module who is well-versed and an expert, because that's also their area of expertise. So they can give you, this is what I do as a paralegal in this area. And when the attorney says, this is how you fill out the HUD statement, for real estate closing, she's like, well, this is how I fill it out, and it bounces every time. So those are credentials of the teachers and teaching assistants there. What's about American Bar Association approval, because you're going to see this if you're doing due diligence and you're shopping certificate courses, and you should be shopping certificate courses. Some certificate programs paralegal certificate programs say they're ABA approved, American Bar Association approved. We are not ABA approved at Boston University, and that's a badge we wear proudly. I don't have anything personally against the ABA, though I will say it sounds far more impressive than it is. It's a volunteer organization of attorneys. It's a little bit anachronistic of them right now. What basically happens is BU was on ABA track from 1975 to basically 1995. 20 years we were doing what they wanted us to do, which is basically a 2-year program and about $20,000. They want, I don't have the number in front of me, but I think it's like 700 clock hours. And we had that, and we were doing that, but we were also losing student enrollments. We were finding that these new intensive programs were coming up, and we did our due diligence and our research, and we found out that hiring attorneys, hiring professionals, were not making a distinction between ABA-approved programs and these more newer, intensive studied certificate programs. We made the decision to drop it and to go out into the more intensive field because it just doesn't make sense. If you are getting your undergraduate degree, you've done it already, you're in the process of getting it, then it might make sense for you to go to an ABA a program there because you're getting it as part of your undergraduate degree. It's kind of like your major, all right? But if you already have your degree, this does not make sense. The market is not requiring you to go 2 more years to become a paralegal. If you go 3 more years, you're an attorney. You know, so, and the salaries of paralegals, while very healthy, are not in comparison to salaries of attorneys, and the extra cost of going 2 years full-time for education doesn't justify the salary. So our research indicates that people are not making a distinction when they hire between ABA approved and not. Some states, like the only one I know of, California, basically to call yourself a paralegal in California, you basically have to either have gone to an ABA school, which you're not, but our certificate is still good in California because, and I don't know the exact law, but I don't have it in front of me, but this is pretty close. You didn't go to an ABA school, you went to a intensive certificate program, you have to, with that intensive certificate, work a year, and then your paralegal status. And if you haven't gotten your paralegal certificate at all in California, but you've worked 5 years with just work experience, you could be a paralegal. You know where you are, know where you're going to be working, but for the most part, it is not making a distinction. And frankly, even in California, I'd rather spend $4,000 on a program and then start to work after 14 weeks than pay $20,000 and be able to call myself a paralegal. You're still going to get the same legal job in California. You just call yourself a legal assistant or something along those lines. So that's my take on that. You do due diligence and make sure, but I'm pretty clear mine's going to pass. Look at this. The next thing we're going to talk about is curriculum. I'm trying to look at how we're doing on time. Okay. The curriculum at Boston University, we're going to cover pretty much everything in terms of the basics. And here they are. We have 7 modules. I don't know why we didn't call them 7 subject matters. It seems to be clearer at the beginning. Do a quick of each just so you have a sense. I can certainly talk more about it. I'm just a little more concerned about time. I don't want to bore you. It's hard just talking over the Internet to know what information you'll want. Legal research, that's going to be one of the first modules you take. It's a foundation of all law and all paralegal work. Talk in legal research really about distinctions between what's a question of fact and what's a question of law. All right, and there's really a huge divide between what are factual issues that have to be researched in factual areas and what are legal issues that have to be researched in legal areas. We're going to learn 2 different methodologies for legal research: the traditional brick and mortar law library, where you digest and reporters, and we're going to learn the methodology that has been around for hundreds of years. That is falling by the wayside, and we want to keep current. Most research now is not going to be done manually. It's, of course, going to be done online. We have two major online competitors, LexisNexis and Westlaw Next. They're very similar. If you know one, you know the other. We got the best contract deal from Westlaw Next, and actually they do edge out in terms of market share LexisNexis a little bit, so that worked out too. Included in your tuition is a password to utilize the Westlaw Next database. It's a vast database. It's very expensive, and your password is included in your 14-week price. What about this is you get to use Westlaw Next and learn how to manipulate the language for your searches, learn how to traverse the different databases so you can get in and get out and get the information and basically just learn the software. And you get to do that on your own dime, all right, because they're going to be happy about you doing that. When you are at a law firm, they don't want to teach you while they have to pay. Every 3 minutes you're on Westlaw, you're paying a certain amount of money, all right? And as paralegals bill clients, they also bill clients for their Westlaw Next time. It's better for you to be able to interview, to be able to go on an interview or to start a job and say, I have familiar. You're not going to be an expert. You're not going to be an expert of any of this stuff. No one expects you to be an expert, but you're going to have enough knowledge and enough base that you could readily build and start, contributing day one. So that's happening in the legal research module, and that password is available to you for the entire 14-week time. Writing and reasoning. I think this is a huge module. Paralegals have to learn how to communicate. They're oftentimes communicating with clients. Like 95% of paralegals have client communication, and you're the liaison generally between the client and the attorney. You have to know how to write your intake information, and you have to know how to present it to an attorney in a quick. Attorneys don't want to do a bunch of extra reading. You have to get the very pertinent information in a succinct style as you can. So we go over two types of writing. One is called case briefs. You're going to learn how to write a case brief, and I'll go over that in class, but it's basically when a judge writes an opinion that becomes part of the common law, you deconstruct that case that the judge wrote, that case opinion, into various components, the facts of the case, the question of the case, the rule or the holding of the case, and the analysis of the case. And by deconstructing it, you're giving the attorney who's going to probably be reading your case brief the various components in a very easy capacity for them to understand. And that's why I like the BU program. We do kick it up a notch in legal research. We're one of the few paralegal programs that talk and teach students how to write in what's called the IRAC methodology. IRAC is an acronym for the issue, the rule, the application, the conclusion. Attorneys write in IRAC, all right? They understand what each of those terms mean. When you understand what attorneys understand, when you learn how to write, how they know how to write, and how they read, the communication between yourselves is far superior. And basically, when you write an IRAC memorandum, even not on a law issue, if it's just a general memorandum that's going through the office, you elevate your professional standing because they understand the words you're using, they understand the methodology, and they understand that as a legal methodology of writing. So we teach you how to do that. Technology is just a huge area right now in all fields. Paralegals certainly not to that, and we try to focus at Boston University in our program on how we can give you some of the most updated, commonly used software and apps that are coming out as they relate to the legal field. Here we're focusing on those evolving technologies that are utilized in the legal field. We go over apps like Clio, which is a leading practice management tool for small and medium firms, which in that legal technologies module on what is called e-discovery or electronic discovery. That's a huge, ever-expanding section of the law right now. If you think of it this way, if you start a text, maybe that text is a sexist remark, or maybe that text is part of a criminal activity, or maybe that text was talking about, I just had a bunch of drinks, I better drive home. Always through the law, you could get get the actual content of that message. Oh, I drank too much, I'm going home. Oh, meet me here, let's liquor store. Or, oh, it might be you get the context of the text or email. They're very easy to discover, and they could be used for you or against you in a lawsuit. Surrounding that textual data is a bunch of what's called metadata. It's all this information that's embedded when the text is sent. Where were you when you sent it? Geographically, where were you? What time of day did you send it? What's the time frame? How many people did you send it to? Was it forwarded? All that invisible metadata is now discoverable in what's called e-discovery. It's a huge area of law, lots of Employment Act factors there. If you've got some sort of IT background, love IT people to go into e-discovery, so it would certainly help you get a job knowing a little bit about e-discovery and having some IT behind you.
We've got a question.
All right.
Oh, here we've actually got a question about the Westlaw specifically. They just asked, will students have unlimited time in Westlaw during the certification program or program?
Unlimited is a word. You will have 60 hours per calendar month. So I believe this one starts in March. You would have 60 hours in March. You would have 60 hours in April. You would have 60 hours March, April, May. So it's not completely unlimited. I've yet to have a student max out their 60-hour calendar month time. I don't want to say it's unlimited, but I will say I've never had a student, and over 6,000 students, I've not had one that has maxed out there, because we get a list of how many hours are left on the passwords, and people aren't really coming close. So you have an exorbitant amount of Westlaw next time.
Oh, thank you.
In that technologies module, we also go over things called Case Map, which is leading litigation support pacer. So there's a lot of tech-specific apps and softwares that we want the paralegal in our program to know, so that they can go up there and be up to date on the most sort of cutting-edge leading technologies that are affecting the area of practice. Probate and family, you're going to be talking about, basically it's that. Probate and families, it's mostly divorce and child support, but you have to learn the basics. We do cover same-sex, because it's kind of interesting, and in this now, and obviously it's the law of the United States. It's kind of becoming global in certain areas, but it's also under attack, and sort of what does that mean? How could it become law in that law? It just makes for an interesting knowledge and well-rounded paralegal to sort of understand what the legal basis is for granting that and what the legal basis may be for denying it or for taking it away. That gets into a lot of what's the role of the federal government, what's the role of the state government, what happens when they interfere or butt up against each other. So it's interesting. That's an interesting component. Business law, you're basically getting into what's a corporation, what's a partnership, what's a due diligence, and all of these modules, what we're really focusing on is what is the nuts and bolts skill set that the paralegal entering a job force is going to need to know. When you're doing real estate, we're giving you the real estate forms. We're giving you a hypothetical, and we're having you fill those forms out. You're writing an offer to purchase. You're writing a purchase to sale agreement, filling out a HUD form, and you're balancing it like a checkbook. So we're trying, in the transactional areas of the law, we're trying to give you the actual transactional papers and work with those papers. One of the biggest differences between sort of an intensive program like the Boston universities and the more ABA 2-year $20,000 programs is they've got some of that, but they also have a lot of theory. The attorneys I talked to when we shipped from the 2-year track to the intensive track said, we don't want our paralegals to know the theory. It's okay. We just need them to do the work. We study the theory. We know how it's operating. We need them to help with filling out the transactional papers, organizing the litigation files. So that's pretty much, we're focusing nuts and bolts. That's where we are in this program. How convenient is it to complete? 100% of this program is online. BU does offer a hybrid if you're geographically near Boston University, and that's sort of a 7 and 7. The first Saturday is 9 to 4 on BU campus, and then the next week is online. So basically the first half of the curriculum for each module is presented in class, and the second half is taken online. But I believe 90% of you and this now are interested in the fully online, and that's what we've been doing since 2006, and it is fully online. And we've been very successful with it. Are the courses modules asynchronous or synchronous or both? It is completely asynchronous with a little caveat. You start this course on a Monday or Tuesday morning, depends on if it's a holiday and stuff like that, clock. You have 2 weeks per module, 7 modules, 14 weeks. There may be certain deadlines within those 2 weeks that each instructor will tell you the first day you have to hit. I want homework by the first Thursday. I want the quiz by the second Wednesday. You know, they'll tell you that. They'll tell you those dates. How you prepare for those is entirely up to you. You know, I will say, and one of the things I'm very clear on is those students who do a little bit each day, instead of waiting to the first weekend and, you know, they don't, course opens on Monday, they don't do anything Tuesday, they don't do anything Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and all of a sudden Saturday they want to sit down 7 hours. That's hard. That's really hard. Successful candidates generally are going to do about an hour and a half each day, maybe 2 hours the second day, or, you know, skip it. It doesn't have to be exactly every day. But you know what I'm saying is just pace yourself, spread it out. You have to have your mind open, and if you just start reading the materials or listening to the videos for a long time, you won't be able to do that. So we suggest a sort of more spread out, you know, pace yourself. And to be clear, this is not just watching videos, or this is just not reading text online. We make the text interactive. You have charts, and if you get something right, you hit a button, and then it tells you why it's right. If you get it wrong, you hit another button because nothing's happening, and it tells you why it's wrong, and you have to rethink it. There's a lot of videos of each instructor introducing the topics at the beginning, and then sort of going over and reviewing concepts throughout the module. So we want to shake it up because we need to keep you awake, because it's going to be too hard to just read all this material online. That's not what this is. It's much more integrated. It's much more energetic. How that is formulated, I'm just reading, how much involvement is between you and the instructors? Yeah, of course you have direct interaction with the instructors. So there's to get in touch with an instructor. We're going to operate on the Blackboard system, and there's actually a YouTube video. Josh, maybe we can send out a YouTube video that just basically gives an overall, I think, 5 minutes of view of how Blackboard works for our program.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. You can talk to the instructor privately through internal messaging in the Blackboard software. We also have what are called discussion groups, and we kind of encourage people to use the discussion boards because if you have a question, odds are some other student has that question. They're going to learn not only from your question, but they're going to learn from my answer. So my answer to your question has the opportunity to help many other students. But if you're private and you don't feel like asking that question, you're feeling a little insecure about it, absolutely send us a private message and we'll get an answer to you privately. Answers are generally going to be within 12 hours. Post it. And there are discussion boards where you introduce yourself. Again, we're trying to make it more dynamic. And there are discussion boards that set up certain hypotheticals, and we ask you to comment from what you read to apply what you read to this discussion that was just posted by your instructor. You get to learn as you would in the classroom, not just from what the instructor is saying, not just from what you're saying, but from what your fellow students are saying too. All right? And let's hit our time when looking at programs. The 14 weeks, and if you sign up, I believe, for the March 15th, you're going to finish by June 19th, if I'm looking at that correctly. So in time for the summer employment market. Total cost of the program is, let's say, $4,000, and that's everything included. That's your Westlaw Next password. That is good for 14 weeks. That is the books, but the books are really going to be downloaded, printable downloads, but it's all written by the instructors teaching each module. There's a printable version that we will click up and it prints the module out. There's no hidden fees in any of this. Everything that you don't need to spend any more money than what we're asking you up front. Okay. I'm just looking, make sure I got everything on that one. Oh yeah, this is where I want to talk about some of there is a slight asynchronous component to this program. So each module starts on a Monday. The second Wednesday, generally at 7 or 8 o'clock, it's up to the instructor, and of course they'll let you know. They hold what's called a live classroom. This is real time. It's 7 or 8 o'clock on Eastern Time. It is optional, and it will be recorded. So even if you can't attend the live classroom, you can watch the live recording. And if you have a question that was generated from something said in the live classroom, you're certainly encouraged to ask the instructor through an instant message or through a discussion board post, ask the instructor whatever question might have been generated from that live classroom. So what is the live classroom? The live classroom is looking at the instructor on your computer screen. We cannot hear you, but you can type, much like here, in a chat bar any questions you have. And the instructor is really instructing some information that relates to the course, but not the part of the course. So just as an example, I usually start in legal research. In my live classroom, I always start with any questions on the course materials, and then I go into some basic resume. I find that students, some don't need any help at all, and some need a lot. So we go over the basics. We go, and I'll send you out a couple templates of this is an entry-level paralegal resume, this is a mid-level paralegal resume, you know, what the font should be, what the spacing should be. How do you language your skill set to make it more attractive? How do you develop what you have? What do you do if there's a gap in your resume? You know, we cover all of that. And we got in the live classroom. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us to sort of get to know you a little bit better through your questions, and for you to get to know us a little better and gel as a class a little more, and also getting some really pertinent information down. I mean, you know, you need to know how to write a resume and how to save it, you know, because save it as a PDF, because these things aren't yield anymore. They're obviously always going to be electronically filed. So we go over the basics of that. In another live classroom I definitely talked about LinkedIn and the importance of LinkedIn. Right now, recently there was I think 2,000 placement agents and hiring recruiters were surveyed and asked what they thought the importance of LinkedIn was, and it was up to 95% of them said you have to have an online presence. All right? So that's nothing to be afraid of. That's something to be celebrated. You know it. We know it now. It doesn't take a magic wand to fill out a LinkedIn profile if you don't have one. You go over the basics of how do you fill that out, how do you make it engaging, what are the advantages, disadvantages of, but basically it's really coming down to everyone nowadays needs an online presence. And LinkedIn is a great way professionally to start that networking, to show, you know, this is the thing. You can say you're edge, you can say you're self-motivated, but if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, you're not showing you're self-motivated. Again, none of this is to beat yourself up. It's just to say this is what's happening out there, so this is the behavior we need to do to satisfy that and to excel at it. And those are happening, again, in the live classroom. Again, they're optional. If you can't make the time that they're being given, you can watch the recording of it and get all the information you need from it. And where I am on my slides. We have talked history. We have talked curriculum time, cost, and we've talked extras. I'm feeling good about this. Our upcoming sessions start March 5th and March 10th. If you need more information, there's the URL for you. Let's talk now questions. I went 5 minutes longer than they wanted me to. I apologize. But I hope you have lots of questions. How can I help you guys?
Okay, Joe. Yeah, we have a couple questions that people submitted. what's the difference between a certificate paralegal and certified paralegal, and would one be better than the other?
I'm trying not to be snarky here, because one would be better than the other, but one exists and one does not. There is no certified paralegal. In the country, there is no certified paralegal. Every paralegal out there has either a certificate or no certificate. They are not certified. Attorneys, again, through the Board of Bar Overseers in each state, have to pass the Board of Bar Overseers test bar. Paralegals do not have that. All right. Now, there are a few organizations out there, like the National Paralegal Association. I mean, that's what they call themselves, and there's actually 3 or 4 of them. There's like the screen. Let me just sort of open that for me. I'll be able to tell you this better. National Organization of Legal Assistants. They have certain tests, and they will offer tests, and then they'll say they'll certify you, or you can clear yourself. It's a comparison of national level paralegal certification exams. Those certification exams are not necessary, and I don't know any employer that's asking for them. Now, they're pushing them, and they make money by giving these exams, and they make money by having you buy the study books for these exams. The truth of the matter is they're not required in the field. I don't think they help you at all. I don't know any employer who's asked for them. So paralegals earn a certificate, and they earn the certificate from the institution that's granting the certificate. All right, be the Phoenix, or it could be a nationally recognized Boston University, but no one's going to give you a certification. You're not going to earn a certification anywhere, but you're going to earn your certificate from the institution granting certificates. Does that help? Clear? Kind of what's going on.
Thank you. We had another question also, like, would you recommend choosing a certain module or a subject in order for someone to gain more experience? Like, would an employer would want to hire you or an entry-level paralegal, like, with a discipline, or with or without a certain discipline as part of their certificate?
No, I don't think that's necessary. I mean, I think what employers are looking for is baseline, the ability to learn, the demonstrated fact that you learn and you earn a certificate and all that. I don't think people aren't, if you're applying to a firm that basically does real estate, yeah, if you have any real estate background, that might help you, that might give you an edge, but that's not necessary. Do you know what I mean? It's more like they're looking for general wide experience, and then you train within that. You learn within that. But that's why we're trying to, in the course, say, look, I've filled out a HUD form. I've worked with an offer to purchase. I mean, what I would do if you're looking for work, and it happens to be a litigation firm, or it happens to be a real estate firm or probate firm, go over your materials in the course, because you'll have the printed out course materials. Go over your standard forms, your offer to purchase, your HUD forms, be able to talk about them, bring a copy of them to you on an interview, or send a copy of them with your resume. This is what I learned. This is what I did. I love doing this. I balanced my HUD sheet. Let me send you my balance HUD sheet. Go the little extra mile if you really are to do that. But I don't think you're going to study specific topics to get into a specific area.
I hope that answers their question.
Yeah.
So and one more. Do instructors provide recommendation letters to the people that get the paralegal certificate program, if they want?
We don't generally do that, mainly because they're not that helpful. We have students who are about 2 weeks. It's hard, especially online, to know the personalities, to see the exact work product. We can see the grades, we can see the work product, but basically I've done it before, and what ends up happening is, and I try to, because director of the program, I said, how long have you had the student? And I said 14 weeks. Well, I actually had the student 4 weeks because I teach 2 courses, and they really drilled down, and it was found not to be that helpful. It's like, well, you really, you're not the best person to recommendation. Where Where that's not true is if you're going to a different degree, and that happened on more than a few occasions. If you're continuing your education and you want to go to law school, for example, or you want to get your graduate degree in sociology or something along those lines, then oftentimes they want to hear from an instructor. And in those cases, yes, we can use you. Yes.
Oh, thank you. And then another question was, do certain types of law practice cater to certain personality types or skill sets in paralegals more or less? Like what is more popular for entry-level paralegals? And is there a type of law where paralegals are less used?
I don't think it's a general question. There's not an area of the law that paralegals are not utilized, and I don't know that there's personality types per se. Detail and organization, if it's your skill set, litigation is probably going to be better for you, but you have to be detailed and organized and everything, so I don't even think that's true. I don't think there's like one field that cries out for a certain skill set over another. It's basically all going to be detail oriented. All going to be motivation, self motivation is a key, because attorneys are busy. They don't want to keep telling you to do something. They want you to solve the problem. You have to be problem solvers, and that's going to be pretty much true in all areas. The type of person that constantly likes a challenge, then you like a generalist or something like that. If you want to know a certain area and sort of get your hands around it and feel very confident in it, then you want to develop an expertise. It's like that's the best way I could answer that. But it's not like one field, like introverts go to litigation or extroverts, stay in probate. That's just really not that true. Part of it is what your interest lies, and really, for me, when I'm counseling students about their first job, their first couple of jobs, it's really whatever you get. Don't limit yourself, because that's going to be the hardest job to get. Once you have experience, it's a lot easier getting your second job. That first job, like any first job in any field, that's going to be the hardest job to get. So I would cast a wide net. I wouldn't limit myself by subject matter or topic. We also talk in one of the live classrooms about networking and how do you develop your own professional network. How do you get in touch with people, and how do they start to view you as someone they want to recommend for positions. So we do have a live classroom on that. But I would cast a very wide net at the beginning of my career for that.
Thank you. That ties into another question we actually got. After completing the program, what, in your opinion, is the average time frame that someone could find employment as a paralegal?
It's really wide-ranging because we're a national, especially online, as we're sort of all over the country. It's going to depend on various markets. It's going to depend on really the motivation of the individual looking for work. Because students want to know this, and I get them wanting to know that. The better I can come up with is, because I can see sometimes, not always, and generally more in the classroom than I can online, who's getting a job. Because people get jobs. You don't have to wait to get your certificate to start looking for jobs. That second Wednesday of the program, I have a live classroom on the resumes. You should start putting your resume and sending it out. And you can put on your resume anticipated Boston University, anticipated paralegal certificate, spring 2016. So that doesn't have to start. So there's occasion when students get work while still in the program. I kind of akin them to the ever-ready battery people, that commercialist, like just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. You've got to have an energy, you've got to have a positive outlook, and you've got to find out what's working, where you're getting butts and where you're not. But it's hard to know who's getting more successful quicker than others, what's behind all that. There's many factors involved, not the least of which is just the energy to constantly pursue. I can tell you have good luck with Indeed.com, and believe it or not, well, it's a surprise to me. Maybe it won't come as a surprise to some of the listeners out there. Craigslist. I tend to think of Craigslist as a place I would look for a paralegal job, but a number of students recently have had quite successful experiences utilizing Craigslist.
So, and then we had one more question. Does the building help come at the very end of the program, or is there help in each module? I know you mentioned this a little bit earlier about the resume.
Yeah, no, that's at the beginning, because I don't want to leave it to the end. I don't want you to wait. If, people are coming in here with different backgrounds. There are working paralegals that are, in the field working as paralegals. They don't have their certificate. And technically, you don't need your certificate, but industry standard is such that, if 10 years ago you didn't need a certificate, but it helped if you had it, nowadays people who actually have 10 years worth of experience are having to come back in to get the certificate in order for the clients to pay you their billables, because clients aren't paying billables if they don't have a certificate. So I don't know if that made sense to you, but you actually have working paralegals with 10, 15 years experience who are actually coming back to school to get the certificate so that they continue billing their hours out to the clients. I have a question, Josh.
It's okay. We actually had another question come in,
okay.
too.
I hope I answered it. I know what I say. So that's why I do the resume at the beginning, so you just start that as soon as you want to.
Okay. And then can a paralegal transition in mortgage compliance industry?
I'm not sure what the question is asking. So if you're saying, in the mortgage compliance industry, if there's attorneys and paralegals, yeah, there absolutely are. So if you have mortgage compliance as your background, then you may be in a better position to sort of target your search to a real estate firm because you know and understand and have the skill set around the backdrop of all that. That might help you because you're going to be, you have that more specific skill set to the real law firm.
I'm just going to take a few moments, I think, to see if anybody else has some additional questions at this point.
Okay.
So feel free to, feel free if you're listening to type it in. If you have any other additional questions, we'd be happy to ask Joe.
Hear me? Well, good. So what I would say is, please type in your questions now. If you don't have any questions now, but as soon as you hang up, you're like me, all of a sudden you have a question, feel free to send that to All Campus, and they'll get it to me, and we'll get it answered.
And actually, we did just have one come in. How soon before March 15th would someone need to call and register for the program? Like, how close to the deadline?
Josh, you may be in a better position to answer that one than me. I can tell you.
Actually, to whoever asked that question, actually, it would be the end of February. It's the 25th is our deadline. February 25th will be the deadline for registration for the March term.
It's not aren't exceptions made. That's our goal, is to register people as soon as we can, because there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done to make sure you have the right passwords. And one of the things we also ask is that, you're going to be taking this on a platform, a software platform called Blackboard. It's a very common, many of you might have already used it in undergraduate or in other courses that you've taken. It's a very common higher academic software package. But we want to make sure you know Blackboard, so we give you a 2-week introduction to it, basically so that you can play and do exercises and learn how to navigate your ways through Blackboard, so that when you actually start art, that's not graded or anything, that's just your opportunity to learn the Blackboard software. And that way, when you start our program, when you start the paralegal program, you're just learning paralegal stuff, and you're not spending a lot of time going, how do I submit an assignment? Where are the discussion boards? How do I send him a message? Because that all is covered in the Blackboard software orientation. It's also, going back to that little YouTube 4-5-minute video I did, I show you Blackboard because I want to sort of demystify it. It's kind of a fun piece of software. I think it's an encouraging and an engaging way to take the program. So you can see that it's more than just reading context and printing something out. It's more than that. There's some fun videos.
Great. Well, that looks like it's the end of all the questions for the time being. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending this evening. Hopefully you had your questions answered. And like we said, if you come up with any, definitely just reach out to us and we'll be happy to get those answered for you. And thank you, Joe, also for taking the time to provide all this information to everybody. Really appreciate it.
Nice meeting everybody. I hope I see people in class. That'd be fantastic.
Great. Well, thank you again, everyone, and have a good evening.
All right, Josh.